Well, it's really nice to talk to you, Trevor, and Liz, as I hope settling in as well. You're settling into Bristol. The offices for the Leprosy Mission are over here in Peterborough, but you're now living down in Bristol because your area that you travel to and you take care of is southwestern Wales.
That's correct, yes.
Thank you for coming in and talking to us this morning, and we're looking forward to what you have to say. So thank you.
It's interesting, isn't it, that with Christmas now a few weeks away, we've now got our instructions as to who we can see and who we can meet with at Christmas. And we know now that 3 households can join together for 5 days over Christmas, which sounds like good news until you think, who of the family are you not going to meet with? And there's going to be some very big decisions as to who you're not going to see this Christmas. And that really makes you think then, well, what does Christmas really mean? What does Christmas mean to me? What does Christmas mean to you? I think as a child, Christmas meant to me big family gatherings. It's all that fun and games that we would have, the bright lights. But I think since becoming a parent myself, I tried to recreate that excitement that I had as a child at Christmas, creating our own family traditions, and particularly where the grandparents come to stay over Christmas, and my children will then rush out to greet them and pull their bags in, and try to recreate those sort of happy memories of Christmas. Now, I've been very fortunate that I have happy memories of Christmas, but we must not forget there are many that for them that is not the case. Significant events often happen at Christmas, and people will remember those every single Christmas, and that means that they could be painful feelings every year, and for others they will be lonely. They won't have the families, the friends to meet with, and it is a very, very difficult time. But I think for a lot of us, it's easy to be in love with the idea of Christmas, almost more than the actual Christmas itself. So what are my deeper feelings about Christmas? It was only, I think, not so many years ago that I really looked at the word Emmanuel. It's a word we hear of in Christmas, songs and cards, but Emmanuel meaning God with us. And God with us, it's an amazing picture, and that is that gift of Christmas. We think of the gift of Jesus coming at Christmas, initially as a baby, but we don't want to remember Christmas by Jesus as a baby. We need to remember him as a man, his character, his way of life, the things that he taught, his peace, and I think very strongly the care that he showed for people, the respect that he showed for people, regardless of what they were or what they were doing, and his calm, self-assured confidence. I think he would have been so cool, and I don't think he necessarily gets represented today as that very strong, cool character that I think he is. So Christmas means to me, I think, an attitude of love. And it's something that we choose. Attitude we choose. We can choose an attitude of just being miserable and grumpy. And we know people that are like that. But I must admit, I like to be positive. I like to be the optimist and look for the good in people. And I feel that that's part of God's attitude through us. But we choose that. Now, this Sunday is the first Sunday in Advent, and we look ahead to Jesus coming again. And what we dream of being freed up as a people to do the things that we've dreamt of doing and people that we've dreamt of meeting. But the Christmas attitude of caring love is one that I believe we should have all year round. And I try to demonstrate that all year round. Because Jesus said that I have come that you may see the Father. And then secondly, he said to know me is to know the Father. So we need to get to know Jesus, to know God. But what does that then impact on us in our lives? Well, for me, let me give an example from my working years. My first career was 40 years in banking and finance for NatWest Bank. And the first 20 years was in normal retail banking, and the second 20 years was as a financial advisor. But to me, it was about people. It was sharing what's best for them, what's right for them, guiding them along a road that they found, for most cases, very, very tricky. Having suddenly received maybe an inheritance of a big sum of money and the responsibility of what to do with that. But after 40 years, I was made redundant. And my old colleagues, my old teammates, they very quickly got jobs with other organizations and carried on and effectively, continued earning very good money. For me, I couldn't do that anymore. I was so grateful for what God had done to that stage and the foundation that he had placed in my family. But I wanted to do something different. I wanted to seek a new direction with God. And so I applied for various charity jobs, and I ended up with interviews for the Leprosy Mission and also for a local youth charity. And when I got offered the interview for the Leprosy Mission, I actually started to get very cold feet. The job looked just massive. It was a big responsibility. There was a lot of management of volunteers and the speaking. I hadn't really done a lot of that before. And it looked so unglamorous. So to fundraise for people affected with leprosy, who would give? But then God stepped in and he really spoke to me very clearly. And I do hear God speak to me very clearly. And he said this to me, first of all, about the general situation. He said this: if the church doesn't care for the sick and the marginalized, then who will? And then personally, he spoke to me and said, if you don't take this job, who will do it? Now, that may sound as though nobody else was applying, and that's not the case, I must point out. But it was very much a direct call from God to share that gift of love and care and concern that I held so important. That was what Christmas really means to me, sharing that love and care with people. And much more important than furthering my first professional career in banking and investment advice. So now I've worked 6 years for the Leprosy Mission, and I have seen God's healing hand in India, in Nigeria, and not least in this country as well, where I get to share physical healing and emotional healing and spiritual healing in church congregations and with ministers too. I've been playing my part to bring God's healing and changing lives, one life at a time. Now, just like my trees, I am also being cultivated. God is cultivating me, helping me to grow. Sometimes having to prune bits of dead wood off me, and that can be quite painful. But he's always feeding me, he's always supporting me, and he's helping me to grow and in his strength and purposes to be more like him. One verse that comes to mind is John 10 and verse 10, where Jesus says these words: I have come that you may have life and have life to the full. And when I go overseas to visit those affected by leprosy, I tell them through the interpreter of all the churches that are supporting them and speak words of blessing over them. But what they remember, I think, is instead a pale-faced man that took their hand and reached out and touched them and was a friend to them. And also it says in Matthew 25 and verse 40, Jesus said, whatever you do for one of the least of these, my brothers and sisters, you do it for me. And that's what God's gift to us at Christmas, what we celebrate at Christmas, God sending his son, the love that God shares with us. That's what Christmas really means to me. And in meeting people affected with leprosy, this has been such a driving force to share that care, to give them the respect that they don't receive so often, to be able to reach out to them and say, you know, God loves you. We want to heal you, but we want to share God's love with you too, and point them towards a loving God. So thank you for listening. I also want to give a really big thank you to all that you've done this year with your project. So the Sandy St. Swithin's project was to support people affected with leprosy in Nigeria, and particularly at the Chanchaga Orthopedic Workshop, where we produce and fit artificial legs for those that had to have them amputated. And this year, despite everything else, you have raised over £15,000 towards that target. And I'm sure it will go up more than that. But thank you so, so much. You are really, really changing lives for the better.
I want to use this opportunity to welcome you to the Leprosy Mission Nigeria Orthopedic Workshop situated in Chanchaga, Niger State. This workshop was established in 1998 with the primary objective of providing prosthetic limbs for people affected by leprosy free of charge to those who can't afford it. In my time of working with people affected by leprosy, it is the stories of isolation that impact me the most. Disabled by the disease, many people are unable to leave their homes. They are excluded by society and forgotten even by their families. But here at Chanchaga, we want to see people living with independence and live to the full. A prosthetic limb can provide just that. The Leprosy Mission Nigeria's Orthopedic Workshop has provided thousands of prosthetic devices and other assistive technologies to the people that we serve. One such person is Nuhu. His leprosy went undiagnosed for 12 years, and due to badly infected ulcers, his leg had to be amputated. When his wife heard about his leprosy, she walked out on him and left him alone with their 4 children. This is what he has to say now.
India Nuhu Ibrahim daga yongoji Allah hawtiam be kuturu nangiam bo Allah hawtiam ko moshin be don be gaddiya yongoji ay be kokkiyan koyngal be gaddiyan daga no inde do dum Chanchaga. Be kokkiyan koyngal mi godana kebe har yoni har jango bo kamba dorgodiya gommi na gode har gobe mission na Allah shaka mashu.
A prosthetic limb is life-changing for Nuhu and his family. Nuhu told us, "When I lost my leg, I will never go out and meet my friends," and became depressed. But now, this will completely change my life for the better. We are reminded in the Bible that Christ came that we might have life in all its fullness. Here at Chanchaga, we want to see people enjoying life in all its fullness, living independently, and playing an active role in their local communities. Sadly, there are many more people with disabilities just like Nuhu who desperately need a prosthetic limb. You can provide someone like Nuhu with a prosthetic at Chanchaga. Please support them, however you are able, and give them lasting independence and freedom. Thank you, and God bless you.